So my name is Jason Lyons. I'm currently located in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. It's about 20 miles west of Center City, Philadelphia. I am currently working for Arkema, and I am the business manager for our Capstan PEKK product line. With SPE, I'm honored to serve as the current president.
Great. And my name is Scott Eastman. I'm located here in Glastonbury, Connecticut, so just outside of Hartford. My professional title is Global Key Account Manager for our Aerospace cluster at Henkel. And my role within SPE is Vice President of Chapters. As far as my particular focus, yes, my current role is 100% focused on aerospace. Before Henkel, I was at United Technologies, just a little aerospace company. And so very, for the last decade or more, I've been very specifically focused on aerospace. Henkel as a whole, there's a commitment to aerospace, but as I mentioned, they're much larger than that, but there's definitely a specific focus in that. And as far as applications, with all of the products that we do offer, it kind of touches just about anything you might imagine in aerospace, from cleaners, sealants, adhesives, and the like. And it's quite exciting, I think, to bring some of that to the table and to share what others can bring to the table in this conference that we're just putting out in the near future.
The product line that I manage is utilized in aerospace, and it has been for quite some time, going back through traditional conversion technologies like injection molding or film and sheet. But then as new technologies have emerged, such as thermoplastic composites and 3D printing, we've noticed that the aerospace industries are oftentimes the early adopters to these technologies. And so with them, there's been more collaboration, more involvement, and a greater sense of how can we utilize plastics to basically eliminate metal. And so a lot of the things that we're doing, the more metal that we can eliminate from an aircraft means that the less fuel we're burning, the more environmentally friendly it is, and the longer that we can fly in the air. And so there's a lot of interest from the airline there. That being said, my product line is heavily and extensively used in aerospace, but it's not the only market that we are concerned about. And that one of the things that I've noticed in how we're doing research at Arkema, and I'm sure that Henkel is the same, and as are many others that are out there, is that innovation happens through multidisciplinary approaches these days. And so it's really getting the right people in the right room at the right time. And so if we look at SPE in general, what Scott and I looked at was it was a chance to get people that may not be familiar with SPE to kind of open the door a little bit and peek inside and see, are there people in here that can help me? And so last year we had a strong focus on thermoplastics. If we look in the membership directory for someone like Boeing, there's not that many names that you find, if any. And so it was really an opportunity to introduce them to people that are further up the supply chain from them, who are material experts. And so if Boeing comes across a problem or Airbus comes across a problem, instead of going to their supplier, who may be more often a converter, more so than a materials expert, it gave them access to people that may be able to help them, and also to plant seeds in their brains of here's the material innovations that are coming out that I can kind of keep on my plate or kind of keep in my toolbox, so that if something comes up, I know that I have more options to play with.
Part of the conference last year was we had a great slate of speakers that talked about what their needs were, what their innovations were, so that folks that were involved in the conference could kind of formulate how does that fit into their own business, and gives them a platform to network, to ask questions, and to really connect with thought leaders and innovators in this space. And I thought that it was really successful last year. We also tried to bring a few things to the table that were very at the forefront of what was going on. So we actually had some folks commenting about how the industry was impacted with the pandemic, and sort of give some context of how this might play out, and have some dialogue around something that was very at the forefront of everybody's mind. And so that was an exciting talk and some good dialogue that spurred up from that. We made this conference very virtual last year, and I would say we put it together in a very short order, certainly shorter than we would have wanted to, but we got a good turnout. And I would say that, in that stage of the game last year, a lot of folks were not being able to go to conferences that they signed up for, being able to speak at places that they were normally able to speak to. So it was very different than I would say this year, where one, we gave ourselves a little bit more time, which it was helpful to us, but also I think definitely needed. And with everything going virtual and everything sort of being virtual in not only the aerospace industry, but across other industries, I would say that it's harder to get folks to into those speaker opportunities because they're being asked to do a lot of things virtually, or finding other virtual avenues to share what they want to say or share. And so I would say this year, however, we do have a great set of speakers already lined up. It took a little bit more time and a little bit more effort, but I'm excited that we have a good slate for this year as well.
So what we're really trying to do is have fewer talks that are what we feel more important and more relevant, so that we can get people back. And so not have an all-day blast full of talks, but have a morning session, and then if you want to attend that, and then have an afternoon session if you want to attend that. If you don't need to, if it's something that's not interesting, and then come back the next day and repeat. And so try to do it in manageable doses so people don't get that fatigue. And so, but ultimately what we're looking for is, Scott and I would like to see this as a runway to in-person conferences, preventing us from saying next year, building off of the success of last year and this year, to say, what, we've gained critical mass, and we want to get now the right people in the room at the same time, so that we can further take advantage of not only knowledge dissemination, but taking also advantage of that critically important thing called networking that we've learned is very, very hard to do in a virtual environment. Part
of what we tried to do was make it a little bit different than last year, right? We focused on thermoplastic composites. This year, very much so focused on interiors and UAM, UAV. And there's some overlap there, especially in the UAM, UAV to thermoplastics and thermoplastics composites. So trying to add a little bit of similar flavor from last year, but maybe in a different focus. But then from the interior side of things, when you look at an aircraft and you look around, just about everything that you see is plastic, right? And so there's a big element of that really we would like to talk about and give our colleagues in the aerospace industry the opportunity to talk about what's important, what are they looking for? Is it lightweighting? Is it throughput? Is it something else, like you mentioned, aesthetics? There's a lot of activity going on touch surfaces and antimicrobial coatings, and we can talk about a lot of things that are already still in the limelight of the conversations of how do we get back as an industry, and how do plastics play a role there, and I hope a lot of that comes out in the conversations that we have coming up in this conference this year. While these conferences are very much focused in the aerospace industry, it's imperative that we have input from other industries. The UAM, UAV topic alone, right? So the regulatory, the safety measures, the things that go on that are absolutely must-haves in the aerospace industry will not be compromised for air taxis. But the throughput, the volume, the things, when you talk about how many cars are being produced, if this really takes off as a technology, in the aerospace world, the volumes aren't quite as high as the aerospace or as the automotive industry. And so there's a lot of things that can be talked about, and best practices and lessons learned that can be shared across industries to make this new potential emerging market a success in the future. People have different areas of expertise, not only from the end use aspect in terms of transportation versus aerospace, but in terms of conversion technologies. So people in injection molding, knowing what the limitations of their process, and if things were to go in a certain direction, how does that impact them? Things with blow molding, rotor mold, or even 3D printing. Does 3D printing still remain
stereotypical prototyping technology, or with this technology, is there a way to advance it into more of a commercial realm? And so all of these questions are good ones, and ones that I would love to see anyone attending Plastics and Aerospace to ask the speakers, to make sure that it's at least on their mind and hopefully leading to subsequent follow-up conversations. I agree that anyone within the value chain that supplies into the space industry is a logical attendee to this. And then, as we mentioned before, not only people that are within the aerospace industry, but people that are converters for different industries that are looking to get into something else. And also material suppliers that are saying, hey, I have a new material that's come up. And as Scott mentioned before, with everything related to COVID, with potentially new disinfectants that are being utilized within the cabin, or fungal free, anything like that. And so anyone that has, from a material all the way through conversion technologies, all the way to part converters, because we have the people that are there at the end saying, here's what we need and here's what we want. And so anyone that feels that they can hear that has a sense of innovation, that says, I have something that may be able to play into that. So it's an easy answer to say those that are already in the aerospace industry. But what I think is more valuable, perhaps, not only for the attendees of the conference, but for the presenters as well, is getting those people that are either tangentially involved, or people that may not be involved at all, but they easily could be.
Ideal audience. I don't know if from any part of the value chain, I think anybody is absolutely ideal, if you will. But I would say that it's not so much a definition of job title or responsibility, but ideally it's folks that are inquisitive, that are engaged, that want to ask questions, that want to get connected into the aerospace industry for many things, networking, understanding what's going on. To Jason's point, when this comes back, there's going to be a lot of need, not only from a technology innovation standpoint, but from a labor standpoint, and getting connected, getting those conversations now and having those dialogues, is something that I'm excited that this conference should be able to do, and hopefully as an industry, the folks involved in this conference will be able to get all that out of it and more.